Hey everybody, Brian from Cabinet Joint here, talking about pull-out trays today. If there's one trend we've seen take on a lot of steam in the last 8 to 10 years, it's storage. Reason being, as kitchens have elaborated into more open spaces where they're conjoining with living rooms and all that kind of thing, you're losing wall space. So there's fewer and fewer walls to hang wall cabinets from. We also have, wider windows and things like that that are prohibiting the use of a lot of wall cabinets. So people are trying to make their base cabinets really do a lot of storage. We have an aging demographic, which means we don't want to bend over anymore. So people are trying to take what used to be open 2 doors and reach into the back of the cabinet for the bowl of soup or whatever you're trying to get, or the can of soup. Now they want to be able to pull the shelf out. So these are called pull-out trays. A better term would be pull-out shelves. It allows you to open 2 doors and just pull the goods out to you. Couple things to bear in mind, these are only available for 21 deep and 24 deep cabinets. We have gotten requests for these in like 27 or 30 deep cabinets. Talk to your cabinet coach. The installation is going to be a little trickier, and they don't make those horizontal stanchions for cabinets deeper than 24, so that rear one would have to be pulled off the cabinet back by however much deeper your cabinet is. So if you did a 27 deep cabinet, your pull-out trays are 24, you have to pull that rear stanchion 3 inches off the cabinet back. You're not going to get 27 deep glide. So talk to your cabinet coach about any workarounds you guys can work up, but typically standard 21 and 24 deep cabinets only. They come as a POT2 with 2 trays, a POT1 that gets 1 pull-out tray, or again, as I mentioned earlier, the tall 4-tray version. If you have a full door cabinet like this, instead of a cabinet with a drawer, and you want 1 more tray up here, you can order an extra tray. You can also order a set of the pull-out tray tall ones, which are like 48 high, and cut them anywhere you want in here, and you can put as many trays in here as you want. You can always order more single trays with the brackets and the glides to add more trays if you want. The standard height on these is 2 inches, so bear in mind if you want something deeper like a pull-out drawer, work with your cabinet coach to custom order the POTs at a deeper height. The standard is 2 inches though. It's really considered a pull-out shelf. It's like instead of reaching in and grabbing your canned goods off of a 3/4 depth shelf, it's like being able to pull your shelf out. So don't think of this as a drawer. If you want to set lids and all sorts of things inside there where it's not falling off the sides, you're going to need a deeper drawer. So just some things to bear in mind as you design with these pull-out trays. But what we're trying to show you here today in this video is how do you put these in? Because almost every kitchen we sell has at least 1 or 2 cabinets with these pull-out trays in them. And we get a lot of questions on how do these go in. There are some differences in the installation between overlay and inset. This is an overlay version, that's an inset version. I'll get into some of those differences both in terms of how they install and some of the part dimensions that are different on these. So let's get started. If you have any questions, give your cabinet coach a call at the end. They'll be happy to walk you through it. Okay, so let's get started on pull-out tray installation. I'm going to do my very best to make this as understandable as possible, but there's different permutations of pull-out trays for overlay and inset. The installation's a little bit different. I'm going to walk you through both as best I can. Again, if you ever have any questions, contact your cabinet coach, and we're going to put some kind of overlay images, close-ups of the different things I'm talking about, so hopefully this will really help. But first of all, what I want to walk you through is the tools. We're going to have a drill gun with this is anywhere from like an 1/8 of an inch to 3/32, somewhere in there, a small enough bit that it's not going to remount your hole too big, and also not so small that it cracks when you put the screw in, which I'll show you in a minute. We're also going to have an impact gun with whatever screw bit your screws take. In this case, I'm using a Torx. Yours might be Phillips. It's fielder's choice there. So I got my screw and drill gun. I've got a pencil and a tape measure, which I'll show you why you'll need those in a minute. I have 4 cleats. The pull-out trays come in base height where you have 2 trays, or tall height where you have 4 trays. The installation's all the same. I'm doing a base cabinet, so I have 2 cleats, 1 for each side. I'll show you how that works in a second. 2 cleats for each side, top and bottom, so a total of 4 of these. And then I have 4 of these notched stanchions that go in the 4 corners of the cabinet, which again, I'll show you in a minute. Now, what gets different here between overlay and inset is 2 things. First of all, on overlay, which you can see here, these cleats that hold the drawer glide are a different width. They're wider for inset because we have to clear these hinge brackets that stick out into the opening. On the overlay version, pull this out. On the overlay version, you can see that the stanchions are much narrower than they are on the inset, because the overlay doesn't have to clear a hinge, so it can go much wider. So you are getting a wider pull-out tray for the same size cabinet with overlay than you are with inset. Since I'm kind of here doing this, I want to show you these pull-out trays are adjustable in 3-inch increments, which is the distances between these notches. And all you have to do is what I just did there. You're going to move them in and out, up and down any way you want. That notch there goes into the rear notch, which I'll show you how to install that. And the front one rests on that notch. And then you just slide the tray in, oops, like any other drawer box. You just take your pull-out tray, set it on the glides, press it until it clicks, and that's how you move your trays up and down. So on overlay and inset, you have the differences in the widths. That's the first difference. The second difference is how these stanchions go in. I'm going to show you on inset because it's trickier. I'll also describe it on overlay, and we'll show you the close-ups that will really help. Okay, so no matter which one you're doing, with the hardware kit, you're going to get 4 of these tooth stanchions. They orient a little bit differently in the front, behind the front frame, and in the back of the cabinet. At the front, you'll see there's a little notch here. That notch goes up tight behind the front frame. And the reason being, and here's where you're going to look at an overlay image on the video here. On overlay, that notch is right up behind the front frame because the hinge has a hook in the hinge. The overlay hinge will wrap around the frame, and that little recess there gives the tabs on the hinge somewhere to go, okay? Inset, that doesn't matter, but on overlay, it's very critical you orient that notch up tight behind the front frame, okay? On inset, the problem is that the hinge body gets in the way. I'm gonna move here so you can see better. The hinge body gets in the way of the bracket being able to pull all the way up behind. So there's 2 options. There's one Conestoga expects you to do, which we don't like, and then there's our workaround, which we like better. What Conestoga expects you to do is notch the stanchion and push it in behind the front frame and have the notch kind of sit between the chopped out pieces. Well, now you're into a mess because you got to make sure you have that exact section, this top section, oriented right, or your trays are going to be unlevel, and it's just not good. What we've done is we just run the bracket up right behind the hinges until it stops, okay? And which is exactly 2 inches, by the way. And then we take the stanchions, or the horizontal pieces that come from Conestoga, and you can see we've cut 2 of them down already. You're going to take your table saw and lop 2 inches off the non-notched end. Just lop 2 inches off. And now what's going to happen is when we put this in, this will sit in there perfectly, just like a normal pull-out tray. I'll show you how to put the hardware on in a minute, but you've basically shortened the carrier by 2 inches. So not a big deal if you got a chop saw, which you should have if you're doing some cabinetry work and installation. I guess you could do it with a skill saw, but you should have a way to cut those nice and cleanly. All right, now let's talk about how these go in the back. Same thing, you have these notched pieces, whereas the front ones went like that. The rear ones go in with the notches facing the cabinet wall, okay? And that's because these pieces, that tab nests in there like that, and the front rests on that bracket that's facing the back of the cabinet. So we'll get close-ups for you so you can see. Now the question comes, how do you put these in? You can pin them in place. If you've got a brad nailer or a stapler, you can pin them in place, which is okay. Be sure you're using a brad or a staple that will not go through your finished side. If you have a finished side on the cabinet, these are 3/4 thick. Your cabinet wall is 3/4 thick, so make sure you're not using a brad or a screw or a staple that's longer than 1.25 inches, I would say, because it's going to countersink a little bit. In our case, we like to screw them, so I'm going to grab my screw gun that has my bit. And again, the front one's going up, back like this, so I want to screw here. I'm going to do 3 holes, the top. And I'm just going to do one. I'm going to do one side, and then we'll go off camera and do the rest and come back. 2, 3, that's the one that goes there. Then the one that goes to the back of the cabinet, the notches are facing the back of the cabinet, so I'm going to screw 3 there. Okay, now we use 1.25 inch, kind of a cap screw. We use a cap screw, again, Torx bit. This fat head keeps it from countersinking too much and possibly poking through the side of the cabinet. So I'm going to use these. Again, they have a Torx bit on them, but you could probably get them with Phillips. Okay, get my piece oriented right. And you see me, I'm not pre-drilling the cabinet side, okay, or the cabinet side, because plywood will not crack or split. So I'm not worried about that. I want to be screwing into virgin wood. So there's my middle one. I'll just do the top one and then come back and show you the rear. Okay. Okay, that's good enough for now. I'm going to come back and finish my screwing up in a second, but I want to at least show you how these brackets now go in. Those will carry my drawer glides, which I'll show you how to put on in a moment. Okay, now what we have to do is mount our drawer glides to these horizontal carriers. I took the one out of the overlay cabinet to show you, no matter how long this piece is, because remember you had to cut yours down 2 inches for inset, no matter how short these are, the goal is to line the back of the glide up with the back of the notch. So here's my wider inset one. It's also shorter, as you can see. I'm going to take the left drawer glide and I'm going to line it up with the very back of the cabinet, or the back of the notch. I don't want to go all the way to the back of this, or now it's going to hit the back of the cabinet. And I want to line the top up so that this is flush with the top of that horizontal piece of wood, okay? Once it's there, and I like where it is, I'm just going to demonstrate one of them. I like where it is. I'm going to take my drill bit. We have a centering bit we kind of like. If you don't have one, just make sure your hole is in the dead center of the screw hole. And I'm going to run a screw hole, and I'm just going to put one in to show you, then I'll come back and give you the final. Use my bit real quick. Using the Torx. You're going to use the large screws that come out of your hardware bag that came in your drawer glides. The largest screws. It should only be, and you actually might have to use some of your own. They only come with a couple, and you're going to need 3 on each side. And what we found is the medium screws kind of push through that hole. You may need to find your own screws if you don't like the attachment you're getting. But and I'm going to do the other 2 holes. One here. One up front. Put these in, and then we'll show you how they all go in once I've got them all fitted up. There you go. Even with the end, doesn't matter how far that sticks out. I'm going to go ahead and put this left one in at the very bottom, but again, these are all adjustable. You can move them up any way you want. I'm going to go fit up my other 3 stanchions or horizontal members, and then we'll come back and show you the finished product. Okay, I've got all 4 of my glides in. Again, to summarize, on both sides, you're just keeping the tail in line with that notch. These will slide right in. You pick your elevation, put the rear tab in that rear slot, and just push that one in on the, it kind of rests on the front of the slot. You'll see in the close-ups we sent. Now it's just a matter of taking the drawer box, and just like any other drawer, lay it on there, push it in until it clicks, and now you have adjustable pull-out trays that you can move up and down in 3-inch increments to your heart's content. If you have any questions, again, call your cabinet coach. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.